Hello, folks. Brandon Chapman with you today. It's another edition of the Theo Night video for August 30th. What is it, 2021 already? No, just joking. It's a Monday. Anyway, let's get rolling here. So the ES futures up nicely today. I mean, when you think about all of the potential, in the market, it just seems like, man, we just keep grinding higher. Another almost 0.5% today. The question, of course, is this or should this be surprising? And the answer is not really, right? We have Fed stimulus. We had Powell not really provide much in terms of hawkish traction, if anything, walking back bullish statement. However, what we have seen, if you look at skew, if you follow skew, while this is not about trying to time the top here, all it's saying these are shark-infested waters. The skew popped up on Friday to 162.3. It'll be updated later again today. And it's just something that says, look, when you have high skew, you expect to have a higher frequency of small up days with this potential for crash risk. Who knows? You might be in the water. Jaws might be there. You could make it to shore. But there's also a chance you could be eaten. Wouldn't you want to know if there's sharks in the water? That's all this is saying, right? There are sharks in the water. And it's something to be aware of, right? That might temper some of your expectations. You might want to quell some of your bullish sentiment, maybe, particularly if you're expecting to be in something for any amount of time. As we look at the VIX today, it's grinding down to about a 16 handle in the VIX. We'll see if we get much below this. But this is kind of an important level down here, about 15, 16. As we start to approach that, the market has a tendency to get tired. So as you go back to the SPX or ES, whatever your poison is here, it's something that says, look, we might be getting a little tired as we approach 40, 45, 50. But remember, the market's really, really hedged. It's going to take something bigger to probably break this to cause it to drop maybe 5 to 10%. We've not really seen a decline of that magnitude since almost a year ago. So we're about getting to that time in terms of seasonality where it might be more readily available. So as we look at today and you look at the performance of the sectors, real estate topped the list, kind of surprising a little bit. Technology's up there, cyclicals, communications. The thing that actually with the bottom of the list today was financials. So if you look at XLF, after a nice run for a number of days here, we're starting to feel a little bit of pain. And where is this being felt the most? Is it being felt in the banking space? Yeah, I mean, look at Bank of America. What about regional banks? Yeah, look at Carry down 2.35% today. In fact, there was a 24 SEP 2163 puts, decent amount of interest this in the 24 SEP, right here. We got a put spread 63.60. What about brokers? Talk about boys in the hood, right? So we got hoods down to nearly 7% today. If we take a look at this in after hours trading, we're not getting hit a ton, but this might see a lot of downside. The SEC may ban payment for order flow, which is a big source of revenue for a lot of brokers, in particular the hood. So anyway, we got hood, Robinhood markets here today. So again, some trepidation going into tomorrow. Bearish activity in XLF, bearish activity in Bank of America, Wells Fargo a little bit as well. And I just showed you KRE. And so again, what's happening in terms of rates. So we look at the TNX here. Yields are falling for the second day in a row. We failed to break out above resistance. Now, that did not stop some bearish trades coming into TLT today. So TLT will move opposite yields. So if the TYX goes down, TLT goes up. However, there was some bearish activity today. So if we look at the 10 SEP expiration, what you'll see is that, there's some downside. People looking for some downside movement, 146, 143. That's for a 10 SEP. That's 11 days out. Buying the 146, selling the 143. Again, that's a decent risk and return. So could it be a hedge? Absolutely. Again, what are you paying for that? Maybe 20 cents? You got about $3, $2.80 of upside. So it's a low risk, high reward trade, low probability. So again, maybe if TLT drops, that will pay off there. But again, you look at the bearishness in financials, that tends to be a little overwhelming. And so as we're starting to narrow in here in terms of the range, like on TLT, forming kind of a symmetrical triangle, which direction is it going to break? If it breaks up, you're probably going to see a continuation in the sell-off of financials. being the worst performing sector today. As you look at some of the stocks that are topping the list on the bearish side, PayPal was the top of the list. Why? When you look at PayPal, some announcement, hey, we think we might want to create a trading platform. They did the same thing back here in June when they said, hey, I think we want to create kind of a point of sale thing to compare with or to compete with Square, for example. Square went through a little bumpy ride back here as a result of that news. So as we're circling back to PayPal, today's activity was kind of pointing to the weekly option at 300. So you'll see throughout the trading day as things kind of picked back up again, kind of slipped here early, popped, kind of fell back again, then rallied again. So we finished up near 290 again. Indication based on today's activity was at around 300. Of course, those that are subscribers to Theo Trade, I have an unusual option activity doc that I update throughout the course of the day. It gives you a chance to see some of this stuff throughout the trading day. And of course, every day in my session, I talk about it. So anyway, but the point is maybe 300 upside, maybe upwards of 306. And again, where is that activity? It's focused on the weekly options. You see volume and open interest here. You'll see that 290 and again out at 300 at the 300 strike. 27,000 it finished today against 824 open interest. So when you think about that again, this kind of potential weakness with brokers, whether it's Hood, whether it's Schwab or others, may have some downside opportunities here on some of the news that are coming out. And PayPal might be the one that kind of benefits the most in this environment where it's probably more oversold, breaking out here. Again, a chance to maybe test 300 to 305 in the near term. Now, that's not all. If you've been following support of late, SPRT, this thing's gone crazy, right? It's gone from 10 to 60. What causes a stock to go wild, right, like this? For example, high short interest, low float. This stock has a very, very small float, around 20-something million shares. They got over 30% short interest. This is like a powder keg ready to go off. And of course, the retail trade coming in, pressuring the shorts, and this thing popping here, going from under 10 to over 60, around 60 briefly. Now it may start to cool, and as the volume starts to dry up, we may see the shorts come back in and drive the price down. The only question is, who's next? So if support.com is the most recent iteration of AMC, for example, going back to May, or GameStop going back to January. You have some smaller moves like in Clover, for example, as it popped from 750 to 30. You have kind of these secondary plays that also have high short interest. For example, Workhorse. Workhorse got a similar short squeeze here and back in January as well. Today in Workhorse, some activity. So again, we got a stock that's one of the most shorted stocks in the market. And as you look at Workhorse, today it was the 10 SEP expiration. So we got a lot of activity here at the 10, for example. You can also go out to 10 SEP at the 10.5 strike, 6,400 contracts against 442 open interest, mostly buying activity. And again, obviously there's the furious nature of the $10 strike price and moving out of the money on Workhorse today. So again, what's another stock similar to Workhorse that could be in this position? Smile Direct Club. Well, Smile Direct Club's been a benefactor in the past, for example, back in January and again in June as it had a really nice short squeeze. Now, again, we faded off our high today. Massive volume came in. Maybe it fails. But boy, I'll tell you, the nice thing about these kinds of stocks is that when you look at the implied volatility of these companies, of these options in these companies, what you'll see is there's a very strong positive skew, meaning that the rising call volatility allows you to do what? It allows you to buy the lower implied volatility and sell the higher volatility. So in other words, you take very little risk for some significant upside if you happen to be right. And boy, you could roll this for a couple of weeks to see until something eventually happens or it fizzles and maybe you're out 50 cents. Anyway, but as you look at Smile Direct Club, where did the activity occur today? Well, it was actually on the bullish and the bearish end today, but the bearish side was not nearly as bearish as the calls were bullish, right? So for example, you look here at the $6 strike for this week, 4 days to expiration, 34,000 contracts traded. I'm sure a lot of us open and closed today as you look at the wild trading day that's gone on. But boy, you start to look at how much these options are moving. you realize why people are doing it and the potential. This stock was trading for as low as, for example, 11 cents and as high as 65 cents just today. Not to say if the stock goes to $8 or some other higher price, similar to past short squeezes. Again, another stock today, CRSR. This one kind of came in late. So I'm going to bring this out again. So again, it doesn't look like super exciting just based on today's activity, but you start to look more closely and you say, okay, does not have weekly options. The spreads are probably a little wider than this. You'll see 20,000 contracts at the 30 strike, 13,000 at the 32.50. And you start to realize, wow, there's a lot of stuff happening on this stock in particular, right? So let's take, for example, the 30 strike. We go more info. We're going to look at how much the options moved today. And you go to 1 day, 1 minute, you'll see, boom, right here, right around 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock Eastern. You see this explosion from about 60 to $2 coming down to 1 again, back up to around 138 to close the session. But again, this is just the initial move in Corsair Gaming. And so I had a chance to talk about some of these stocks earlier in my session. We looked at some of the high short interest list of companies that have over 20% short interest. Of course, this is one of those companies that has high short interest. And again, how much could this move? 30, 32? We look at past short squeezes, it was sold quickly. So remember, if you get a big move, you got to take it. Don't wait around. These things can come around quite a bit in the opposite direction. And then finally, the last one we're going to talk about today is OTRK. Again, similarly, this stock has been a benefactor in the past of the short squeeze here in January and in December. But again, we had a big drop here. Again, the move doesn't look that big, but the volume was significant. Again, this is another high short interest name. It's lesser volume than maybe some of these other stocks here. But this was a 17 SEP, $15 strike price. So again, what you're seeing is activity. People are speculating. And again, the same implied volatility as all these other companies have. Lower volatility for the closer at the money. Really high volatility to move out of the money. Again, I don't know if any of these are going to move or maybe one of the moves or two of the moves. The reality is the volatility and the potential for movement. Again, you don't have to, maybe hit on one of them. It could be a huge winner and pay for all the trades combined. So it's one of those things to take in mind that given we're in shark infested waters here, it doesn't necessarily hurt to take a very small risk, high reward trade in stocks that may not necessarily be all that correlated to the broader market. Anyway, so again, just to give you some thoughts of stuff that's happening, some bullish activity today in Apple as well, and a number of these companies, Facebook, Amazon. But again, we got to pick what's going to be the highlight of the day, and we already covered those. Anyway, it's good to be with you, and for another Monday.